Colonel Burr Harrison Polk, Union soldier, businessman, and one-time carpetbag mayor of Vicksburg, wrote this article for Forest and Stream in 1876 about a hunting and fishing trip he took up the Yazoo and Sunflower Rivers to the wilderness of Bolivar County. If you enjoy it, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And check out our website, canebreaks.com. Thank you. The Game and Fish of Mississippi. Vicksburg, Mississippi, November 20th, 1876. Editor, Forest and Stream. I have never seen mention in your paper of this part of the country as a place where fish and game abound. And yet there are localities not far from here which are unexcelled in these particulars. There is a region of country lying north of the Yazoo River and east of the Mississippi, known as the Deer Creek and Sunflower Country, in which such game as ducks, turkeys, deer, and bear are abundant, and in the rivers and lakes of which there is no reasonable limit to fish. The Sunflower River is a tributary of the Yazoo, which latter finds an outlet into the Mississippi, 15 miles above this place. For 10 miles above its mouth it is dead water, when what is known as Oliphant's Bar sets in, making navigation even to the smallest sized steamers quite difficult in low water. Perhaps 50 miles above the mouth are the Mussel Shoals, where mussels abound by the millions, and where the river spreads out over so broad a surface in proportion to its volume that all boats at this season of the year are compelled to pull over with cable and capstan. In other, and indeed most all places, the stream is so narrow and crooked, and full of logs and driftwood, that in many places a boat will not average over 2 or 3 miles an hour. In every direction are lowlands. The territory is almost a dead level, and during floods in the Father of Waters, it all goes under. In the year 1867, it is supposed not a foot was uncovered except the mounds which abound hereabouts. The river rises near the northern part of the state and runs parallel with the Mississippi about 50 miles to the east of it, and passes through as fertile lands as any under the sun. They do not overflow as readily as those near the great river, and were they not so difficult of access, would be much more valuable. Settlements are mostly on the river front, or cross lagoons and bayous, but they are not numerous anywhere, and there are many places where a man could travel days at a stretch on foot and not see a human habitation. At this season of the year, the swamps, as they are called, are dry, and but for the obstructions so frequently offered by the innumerable and almost impenetrable canebrakes, locomotion would be comparatively easy. Here and there are sloughs and bayous, in which water still remains, and now and then are small lakes, all of which abound in fish, and are visited by great flocks of ducks, which fall an easy prey to the hunter. In some parts of these swamps the bear are so abundant that during roasting ear season they do great injury to the fields by eating the growing ears, and at all times make it almost out of the question for the planter to raise hogs. 3 years ago, while staying with a friend near the head of navigation, one day sitting in the portico, we heard a hog squealing just above the house on the opposite side of the stream. The proprietor hastily took his needle gun and ran up there, where he found Mr. Bruin trying to make a meal off pork. It was an easy matter to bring him down with one shot. A neighbor of my host, by the name of Flanagan, who had a horde of bear dogs, had killed 43 bears from January to the 1st of August, and he did not feel that he had done wonders at that. A party of 8, headed by Dr. E.S. Henry of this city, took the little steamboat Vicksburg at sundown on Saturday, intending to have a little fishing and hunting on the Sunflower. The boat was not a large one, but it had clever officers, and the party were made comfortable and at home. We reached the mouth of the river before daylight and the foot of Oliphant's Bar at about 9 o'clock Sunday morning. In that wild region people perhaps forget the Sabbath day, for no sooner had the boat run her nose on the ground and the mate began to put out his cable to haul her over, than one Nimrod had his dugout overboard and himself into it with his shotgun, paddling for the shore. In a few moments we heard 2 shots from him and began speculating upon his success. In the meantime, 2 other members of the party had their rods rigged up, and with small chunks of fresh beef for bait, were trying to entice the catfish. This resulted in the capture of one fellow about 15 inches long. The hunter returned in about an hour without game, having made his 2 shots at squirrels. But finding the boat still worrying with the sandbar, he put off again, going higher up on the stream, and when he came back at the call of the boat's whistle, he brought with him 2 squirrels. After a day and night of hard wrestling with snags, logs, and driftwood, poling the barge and the boat around the sharp turns by means of long poles in the hands of the roustabouts, we reached our destination at the mouth of Darling's Bayou at 5 o'clock Monday morning, and were put off, bag and baggage, upon the high sandy bank in close proximity to a large pile of dry driftwood. Here we put up our tent, and as soon as daylight was fairly at hand, all the members of the party except Captain Otter, who bossed the arrangements about camp, were either in the skiffs we had brought along fishing, or were striking into the forests with their guns in search of game. The first gentleman ready with hook and line, in his eagerness to get his work fairly in, baited his hook with a piece of fat meat, and it was not long before he had a couple of catfish flopping on the bank, and then a nice bass. It was the first time I had seen a bass so far forget his dignity as to strike at a piece of fat meat lying still in the water. But during the morning we hooked and captured quite a number, with no other bait than small strips cut from the sides of some small perch we caught. Later in the day, however, we discovered a place where we could obtain minnows by the million, and from that time out used them freely. The bass bit ravenously during the day, and the fishing party were enabled to carry more into camp than could be used or saved, as the weather was pretty warm. The second day was cold and rainy, and the larger part of the party remained in camp. The fish would not take hold freely, and only a few dozen were captured. Up to this time the hunters had killed a few ducks and squirrels and wounded a deer and a turkey. The gentleman who wounded the deer tracked him so eagerly that he neglected to keep his bearing, got lost, and did not reach camp until a party of discovery went out and hunted him up. On Wednesday morning at 5 o'clock we heard our steamboat whistle at the landing, 5 miles above, on her way coming back. In a moment all was bustle and confusion, packing up. In an hour or so the boat dropped in at our camp and took on the luggage and about half of the party. The others, after supplying themselves with minnows, took to the skiffs and floated down the stream, stopping for a while at such points as gave indications of bass. These elegant fish seemed to be ravenous, and even tried to swallow our bobs. The fishermen actually became surfeited, and laying aside tackle, started on the run after our steamer, which was overtaken about 3 o'clock in the afternoon in the narrow and crooked part of the river, where she and her large load of cotton were making but little, if any, over a mile an hour. The boat tied up at dark. As she had passed up, she ran of nights by the aid of a pine torch at her bow, but could not well do this going down with the load of cotton. The next morning the larger skiff was put overboard, and 3 fishermen went into it, where they remained all day, overhauling the boat near the mouth of the river. 3 hunters took the shore, and one his dugout alone down the river. These were all picked up a little after noon, having killed some ducks and squirrels. The fishermen had a field day of it, and brought in a magnificent string of black and striped bass. Vicksburg was reached at daylight on Friday morning by a party who had enjoyed themselves hugely. Messes of fish were sent about over the city to friends. It is a wonder this place I have written about is not visited by more sportsmen. There is perhaps no place on this continent where the game I have described is more abundant. It is not very hard of access, the people are genial and clever, and a man seeking a quarter in which to while away his time with the gun or rod and meet with good success cannot find a more favorable locality. Signed, B.H.P. If you enjoyed this, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. And do check out our website, canebreaks.com. Thank you.